Welcome to Marc My Words, a show that searches for the fork in the road in life, the place where the turning point in the journey of entrepreneurship and life can be found. Let's meet each other at the crossroads on Marc My Words. So if you've listened to some episodes of Marc My Words, you'll know that I have a lot of interest in things like dating apps, mainly because I've grown with that kind of thing through my whole adult life. I mean, it kind of became a thing just as I was getting out of high school. It wasn't a particularly popular thing back then, but it has certainly grown over the course of time, and I love talking to people about these kind of topics. And today, I have an entrepreneur, Maureen Pound, who wants to talk a bit about a book and about just her story. She has a very unique story about just pushing 40 and discovering the dating app world. And she has a really interesting story to tell about that. And, this is one of those conversations that I think it could go in a lot of different places, could go all over the place. And I'm excited about it. Maureen, welcome to Marc My Words. How you doing today?
Thanks, Mark. I'm happy to be here.
Awesome. Great to have you here. And I know that you're an entrepreneur on your own. You've been doing a lot of stuff for a long time, but I know that this particular topic is something that you really want to focus on. So we're really gonna jump into that in a second. I usually start out my episodes by just talking a bit about, we all have like a path. We all wind up somewhere for a reason. We have a passion, and I know I have mine that I've talked about, but curious to just quickly get into some of yours because you like tried out journalism, coaching. I know that's something that's really important to you. That's a part of your world, just as an entrepreneur. Uh, and then you did adult education. What made you want to pursue some of these avenues just to kind of set up how you got to the point that you're at today?
I think the avenues are quite similar. So I've always been a writer, even since I was at school. That was my best subject. So a lot of it's around writing and communication, really. That's the basis of everything. So, um, yeah, so, I've taken this journey where I've done, professional writing, I've done teaching, started a business 22 years ago, coaching. So, and things have evolved since then. So, like any person, we often want to help people who are like a couple of steps behind us. And that's sort of what I've done throughout my career.
Got you. Very interesting. And again, I know that you have done some things entrepreneurially. Like, what kind of made you want to become an entrepreneur? Because I feel like a lot of people from your part of the world tend to take an entrepreneurial direction. Is there anything in the water down under?
Well, we were a lot of us, although it's very multicultural now. A lot of our ancestors did, come over from ships from England. They were prisoners, convicts, um, and they were given land after they served their time for a very small sum, or sometimes they were given it for free, and they like had to make their way. So I think that's where a lot of it is. Well, I can't get a job off it anyone like, what am I going to do? So maybe it is in the water or in the land. And for me, I was working in corporate. I was, happy. I did a job even for the United States Air Force in Canada, actually. Again, that was around writing. And then one day I was sitting on the train heading to work, and I was just realized that I was unhappy. I was over what I was doing. And I saw a newspaper, this free newspaper on the seat next to me, and it had an ad for coaching, studying coaching. So it sparked an interest, and the rest is history, really. I studied coaching and then realized that back then, 22 years ago, there weren't coaches everywhere. It's a little bit like before everyone had personal trainers, no one did. And the same, before coaching was really out there. And the only way I could coach and earn money was to start my own business, rather than, there was no coaching jobs per se. So that's sort of how the entrepreneur journey started for me. I didn't see another way.
Yeah, and some people wind up running into that roadblock in their life where, they don't fit into the corporate world. And even though I'm still in the corporate world, I don't always feel like I fit into it, which is what brings us here at this moment in time, is me pursuing this show and, talking to very interesting people like yourself. And so I have to ask, with you in that place where you're working really hard, you started up this business, you're doing great, but you wound up, and I know for me, turning 40 was pretty significant. I had, real good just reflection and talk with myself about my life and what I was doing. That's how I wound up here today. And it kind of sounds like you went through that, but on a very personal level. And it sounds to me like, you can certainly tell your story because I know you're here to talk about the book, but,
Yeah, yeah,
you,
sure.
and
Yeah.
you sound like you want to jump in. I'll let you just jump in. Go right
Yeah,
ahead.
yeah. So, yeah, and I'm happy to go down any paths around entrepreneurship and sharing with people, because I really feel strongly about people setting up a life that makes them really happy, not what everyone else thinks they should be doing. Like that's another whole topic. So many people study things because they got high enough marks to study things, and they don't even want to study that thing. Anyway, so what did happen was I became a coach, and I was happily busy building that business. And then I decided, when I got to my mid to late 30s, that I really wanted to partner and have children. So I went madly, dating. And it was sort of before the time of apps. It was more like RSVP and the other platforms out there at that time, not the apps. And I met various guys during that time, but no one that I wanted to marry or wanted to marry me. And women have biological clocks. So you can't, as a man, you can wait, you can have kids in your 60s and 70s, but I was late 30s and knew it was running out. So I had two anonymous sperm donor children on my own. The first was due on my 40th birthday, which was unusual. And I had these two beautiful children, and then I was basically exhausted for the next 7 years, looking after them. And so then what happened was I did a bike ride in Thailand with 50 other entrepreneurs, and we were raising money for orphans over there. And it was 500 kilometers in 5 days. It was hot, it was hard, and things play on your mind when you're on the bike for that many hours a day. And it sort of came to me that I'd cut off that part of my life, the dating part of my life. And there were a few sexy men on the bike ride, and they were flirting, and like, I'm like, oh, like, I'm getting noticed again. So, and that felt a bit foreign because I wasn't with my kids, I was in a different environment. And so I decided, after that ride, that I was going to go out and put myself on the dating apps and start that journey.
Awesome. Yeah, and I know personally what an intimidating thing it is to put yourself like just out there on a dating app. I mean, I had tried so many different avenues with it. Although, it was in a much different era, a much different time in my life, but it's very hard to meet somebody just day to day and, let alone putting yourself out on a dating site. Some people have no problem with it. Some people, the string of, not being able to click kind of like continues. So, how did you feel once you got on like, just a dating site? How did it feel? Did you feel like it was working out? What was kind of like the catalyst for you deciding to write the book that you have?
So I think there's a few parts to that question. In terms of there's different stages in your app journey. I think so. The first stage is like even getting on. Taking that first selfie or finding some photos to put up there. What do I write? And I usually say to people, you definitely need a nice face shot and just a little bit about yourself, a couple of lines is fine. So once I did that, um, I'd been to the hairdresser the day that I took the photo, and I was feeling fit and strong and all that sort of stuff, and I had a bit of success, so it wasn't too hard. But then there's the next stage of what do I want? Do I just want casual or do I want a relationship here? And that's sort of the next stage. And to that, I always say, whatever you want on a given day or a given week is fine, and it can change because sometimes that stops people getting on there as well. So I would just say, okay, I want just you know, just to start dating again. That's all I want. I don't want a partner. And so once I took the pressure off myself, then it was easier. And then the next stage was, that I met lots and lots of different men, and I had sex, and I played tennis, and I went for walks, and I did, all sorts of different dating scenarios. And so what happened was I met all these people. I get along with people very well. I like men a lot. I don't think I'm very negative towards men. I have a bit of a soft spot. I think sometimes, women get a bit jaded and, I don't know, the attitudes toward men, but I always want to be really positive. And so what happened was that they started trusting me and asking for advice. Some of these guys who are getting really frustrated. So I then decided that I would help them, and then this idea came to me that I would write a book to help them.
So, did you feel that? So, you worked all that time, you had your children, and you were just super focused. Then you decided to do all this, and then you decided to write the book. And everything in life kind of like happens for a reason, and it kind of like connects you from one thing to another. But between all of that, did you feel like this brought you the thing that was missing from your life as an entrepreneur? Do you think that, like, or just as a person, not even entrepreneur, we can almost throw that out the window if we want? Did it just help you as a person?
Yeah, I think it really did help me as a person. But just even in your question, did it bring you the thing you needed? I think sometimes we're misguided. We think if we get this one thing, we're going to be whole or complete, and life's going to be great. And I just see life as this continual climbing the mountain, looking at the view, and then woohoo, going down for a while, and then you've got another mountain to climb. And so that's what I think the journey was for me and is for me, on dating apps and in life in general, where um, I decided that, well, one of the outcomes was I decided I didn't want a partner. I was still raising my two kids. They're still living with me at home, and I didn't want a partner in my life. So, and a lot of people find that really difficult. that whole concept. Maybe in 5 years, maybe in 10 years, I might. But at the moment, I'm choosing to be single. So yes, I did. I did get what I needed through that exploration. I got that clarity.
So, do you feel that my mind just went blank here because I'm listening to you so hard. So, you know, I am going to jump into something else here and I will try to remember what I was thinking because I have a lot of things going on in my mind with this episode. This is just so interesting. Um, so I'm just going to go off of here. Uh, so I had been on sites for years and didn't have a whole lot of success. I wound up meeting my wife on one site. I wound up meeting her on
What
eHarmony.
site was it?
It
Oh,
was it
Harmony.
was
Nice.
eHarmony, yep. And it was basically like I had a free weekend. So I had been on there as a member before that, and I have horror stories like you wouldn't believe. Like, oh my gosh, we don't even have enough time for that. But once I came back and just did just a free weekend, I wound up meeting my wife, and boom, there you go. But for me, even though I was always like pretty comfortable with putting myself out there, I'm kind of like weird in that way where I'm good with always trying something new. And this, just online dating is definitely something new to people, back like, I don't know, 20-ish, 30, even like 30 years ago. So I don't know if, I could have benefited from more tips, but I'm just looking here. What is a
Hey,
great?
Mark, can I jump in and ask you a question? Because I'm fascinated. I'd love to know from you. So you had the horror stories and then you met your wife and you said boom. So what was different? Like did it just all come together when you met? Because
It's
she was
just
the right person for you at the right time.
it just kind of came together, and for the life of me, like it's so hard to explain. Just because the question of like, what is a great first message here, and just stuff like that really sticks out. Because when all is said and done, I wound up accomplishing the goal, but there were a
Yeah.
lot of misses and whiffs and whatever with it for many, many years. So I'm just curious to find out what you think is like the key as far as like a great first message or a heading or that paragraph. Like, what's the kind of thing that people can do to really get noticed is kind of what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. So I think there was a lot of, you know, great stuff in what you've shared there. So number one, be yourself because you and your wife are attracted to each other, and if the more genuine you are, the more you can find the person that's a good fit for you at that time. So I think that's really key. So people go, oh, don't put gym pics on there. Oh, you're just big noting yourself or that. But like, if you go to the gym 5 times a week, put a gym pic. There'll be a woman there who goes to the gym too and wants to, hey, we're a match. So, don't get caught up in what you think the world wants to see, but rather who you are. In terms of the other around first messages, it's very common for people to say, men and women, to say, hey, hi, or how are you? Or hello, sexy, right? So they're now the it skews in females' favor because there's way more men on the apps than women. So therefore, she's going to get a lot of hey sexies. So after she gets the 10th or the 20th, it sort of loses its charm, shall we say. So, not such a great first message. So what a good first message would be, and say you look at her photos, you see my friend has a photo of her weightlifting. Now, she's technically obese, but she's strong, right? So you could say, you see that picture, and say, wow, you weightlift. I love a strong woman. How about that for an opening line? So she is, you're seeing her for more than and I know in a way it still is physical, but like I just think it's a great line because it's got dual meaning. So what I'm saying here is to you can have a positive message. You might compliment the woman on something that you've read in her profile, in her picture, that's not about her smile or her being sexy.
I always had the approach that I was not somebody who went to the gym. I knew my place with it. And I always tried to be just very real and honest about who I was and what you were getting into. And I think that's the exact right approach. But I was very curious to see if you, the the expert here, had any kind of perspective, maybe something I was missing. But
No, yeah, but the thing is, a lot of people are missing it. You're not missing it, and say you're not into gym, but you might, even sometimes they have just, you can put your interest there, and if they say books or something, I see you're interested in books. I'm just reading, To Kill a Mockingbird. I know I love the classics. What what have you read lately? Like the thing is, if she's matched with you because the physical is still very important. If she's matched with you and she's not so sure that she's attracted to you, no matter what you write, you're going to get nowhere, right?
well,
So at least give it a red hot go and write something decent. And then if she's mildly attracted to you with the fact that she's being seen by you, then she wants, because you just want an in, don't you? You want to get that spark in the
yeah.
conversation going, and then you can be off and racing.
Yeah, you nailed it. I mean, you just want to get that in beyond that initial message because I mean, I'm digging back from a long time ago, but I just know that I had so many messages just trying to be myself, just like, hey, look, I'm not Mr. Smooth Talker or anything like that. I'm just me. And I'm guessing you, as a successful entrepreneur, very independent, resourceful, and you're just standing on your own 2 feet. So going into that situation, I mean, was that your approach of like, look, this is who I am. I'm strong, independent. I'm, entrepreneur. Because I know some people, not me per se, but just some people could like be maybe intimidated by that. I mean, I'm guessing that was not your experience, and you wound up finding your groove because it sounds like you had a lot of fun.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun and I met some really interesting people, and I didn't have too many horror stories actually. Some that, occasionally was a bit dodgy, but not too much. And the thing is, if the person is intimidated, then it's not the right person. And then also women, I want to be really honest here. Women will often say, "Oh, he was intimidated by you." No, he wasn't. He just wasn't into you. um, let's be honest as well. So, yeah, so the right person or people will be attracted. And so that's the other thing to remember. You're not everyone's cup of tea. So don't try and be everyone's cup of tea, because the more you muddy the waters trying to appease everybody, the less likely you are to appease the right people, to connect with the right people.
So remember that rambling tirade I did where I lost my thought? I found it. So
Good.
you, so you and I think, are similar in a way that for years I've reflected on my experiences and have considered doing something with it, not so much to write the kind of book that you did, but I work in television, so that's kind of like my background. I've thought about doing a number of different things, like even doing like, I don't know, a YouTube series. I have a lot of stories that could easily take up all of this time. And I know that where a lot of like my ideas that I have never actually acted on are rooted in that I hope to act on someday. But when did do you remember the moment where it was just like this could be, something that I can share with people and educate them and help them?
Yeah, so there was an inkling of an idea, and because I have a writing background, I think I'm reasonably good at it. Because some people just go, "Oh, we want it's people's dream to write a book," and so I get that. But I felt like, look, you've got a bit of talent in that area as well, so that gives you a bit of the upper hand. And you've studied people since you were born, almost like you've been that fascinated with people and communication. So what happened was I went to a quite a well-known journalist was running these workshops on writing books, right? So I went along to one of her workshops. There are about, I don't know, 12 to 15 people there. It's quite intimate and nice. And I think there were only 2 or 3 men. And so we were pitching our ideas for our books around the table. And you had to share 2 or 3 ideas. So I shared 3 ideas with the group. I said, I can write a book about how I gave up drinking about 22 years ago. I can write a book about having anonymous sperm donor children, or I could write a book about how to get laid on Tinder for men from a woman's perspective. And all the women, guess what they said? They said the anonymous sperm donor, the give up drinking, every single woman. And these men were quiet for most of this workshop, but they just couldn't help themselves. They just said, no, excuse me. If you wrote that Tinder book, we would read it. And our friends would read it. And I think it's a really good thing. It's a really good idea. And something just clicked in me. And I asked a few more guys, and they like, yeah, and then asked me specific questions about, the online dating world. And I thought, well, it's never really done before, where it's usually men helping men or women helping women or men helping women. But this whole turning it around and going, okay, I'm going to help men in something that's a bit taboo, getting laid on Tinder. Society doesn't, even the title. And I'm going to do it with kindness and from a woman's perspective and in a helpful way, in a way where I'm saying, here's some templates. Here's some sexting templates. This is why it works. Here are the words. You've complimented her. You've, like really practical. And I want to do it with kindness. A lot of women say what they don't want and not what they do want. And I wanted to turn it around. So that's the story. So then I got to work on it and did a lot of research. And it's hard writing a book. What do I put in? What do I don't? How do I organize my thoughts? And it was a huge project, but I'm pretty proud of the outcome.
You should be proud. And sometimes I feel like the best ideas in life are the ones that we feel a little like insecure about. And we're like, no, that'll never work. People will never go for X, Y, and Z. And I feel like I have a few ideas, kind of like this particular topic. I've been kicking it around for years to do something with my own online dating history. And then when I really put myself up to it, I'm like, I don't know. Maybe like it never like looks right or feels right in my head when I try to visualize what I'm gonna do. So I don't know about you, but I feel like sometimes some of the best ideas come from that. And it almost sounds like you're an example of that.
Yeah. And the other thing is, because, people always think, oh, I'm writing, a lot of entrepreneurs write books to promote something else. And in actual fact, I'm not. I've got a successful, multi-million dollar business that's going fine. And I wanted to do this because, yeah, sure, I want some accolades. Sure, I want, to be recognized. But like, I genuinely wanted it to be good, standalone good to help people. And even if, and women are buying it too, but even if they, just get 1 or 2 ideas from it, or you know, get that confidence to give the app a go again with a different attitude, then I've achieved something. I've, helped someone. So I think people get caught as well because they think that it then has to become their life for the next 5 to 10 years. Whereas if you took one of your ideas and like, I'm still Mark working in TV and I'm still Mark with my podcast and I'm still Mark with this particular thing that I'm creating.
So I feel that a woman or women putting themselves in a position to do what you did to help men, that to me sounds like something very realistic. And I'm not saying I find the reverse unrealistic, but how do you feel about a man like telling a woman, like, do men actually have a clue on how to help women with dating, do you think?
Yeah, and it's really interesting because there's the term mansplaining where, because but I think that could be person splaining, really. Women do it as well. But what it's about is that there is a right way. This is the right way. You're an idiot if you don't do it this way. And so sometimes, because men are very structured and, sometimes black and white, sometimes their advice comes off as this is the golden answer. Whereas the book, nowhere in the book am I giving the golden answer. I'm giving templates. I'm showing you why that worked. This is my experience of a guy sexting me. It is real. He did a good job. This is not about me. He did a good job, and here's why it worked. I interviewed guys. I got their perspective. So I hear where you're coming from, but all I'm doing is presenting a perspective. Should men pay on the first date? This is what women think about it. You can do whatever you want, but here's some data. Here's some opinions. Take that and do with it what you will.
So, do you feel that it is possible, regardless of like what kind of lifestyle you want to have with like your dating, whether you want like more of a commitment, whether you want to play the field, date a lot, or whatever it is, do you feel that it is truly possible to have and create on your own kind of like that life that you want? And I know a lot of people have a lot of different things that they want. Some are very unconventional. So, do you feel that, especially with this perspective, do you feel that it is possible, or even without that, is it possible for people to just find that happiness?
I think that's a great question, and I think there's a few things that come into it. Society says that we should be coupled, heterosexually coupled, even though there is variations of that, which is a bit is a bit sad because I think love and let love, but I think that hormones and other things play a part. Like people often say, men only want one thing, and I go, yes, they do, a partner. They might play the field for a while, but you don't see many, happy old men on their own. They don't want to be alone, right? So yeah, we're drawn to this, part of biology as well. So for me, I had to push against it a little bit sometimes. Like the hormones would come, I'm like, oh, I want you to whatever. But it's a fairy tale, and fairy tales aren't real. And now that I've gone through menopause, it's like all those emotions of those hormones have drained from my body, dramatic. But it's like it's not, the pool's not there at all anymore. And that's where like there's this big drive of women around these age getting divorced because they just don't have the love hormones that they once had, and yeah. Anyway, it's hard to explain. So I think any path you choose is a little bit hard occasionally. I'm sure it's not all sunshine and roses with your wife the whole time because we're human. So the grass might be always greener. There's going to be ups and downs to whatever you choose. but you have to work with what you choose in that given time. So you have to work with your wife to maintain a really good relationship. I have to work with the occasional feelings, oh, it'd be nice to have a partner. Um, and, you know, and it is what it is. I've also not lonely. I have, really good friends taking different roles in my life. So I've got the confident, I've got the holiday buddy, I've got the sex buddy, I've got this, I've got the that. So everyone sometimes tries to get all these things in the one person, and it's very hard for that person to provide everything for you. So my way is not perfect either, but it's my way for now, and I'm pretty happy with that way.
Yeah, and from my perspective, there is nothing wrong with that because I think at the end of the day, whether we're talking about incorporating dating into our lives and trying to find our way, find a way that works, whether the goal is to hit the delete button on the profile or to stay on for a long period of time and just, as you kind of put it, filling those gaps where we need them. Uh, I feel that everybody has the right to kind of like find that thing that they want. And I mean, do you feel that you're able to eventually show people that online dating is not as complicated as it might seem? Because I still view it as a very complicated and like very interesting world in my from my perspective.
Yeah. And I think it still is. But I think there's things you can do to protect yourself. Like when you're feeling shit or down and you sometimes go to it, like you go to social media now to get a dopamine hit. So you'd go there and then you get, you might get some matches. But then if someone unmatches you, then you're full on, and you eat a whole packet of chocolate cookies. Um, so so don't go on it when you're feeling down. It's not going to make you feel better. You want to go on when you're feeling confident and you're feeling good about yourself. So that's just one thing you can do to protect yourself. The other thing is around the attitude. If someone, even the term ghosted, I don't like it. In the real life, you have friends who you haven't caught up with for years. It just faded away. Well, that's what happens on apps. That you've said something to annoy them, or you haven't answered in 3 days, or they're just not feeling it right now, or they're just not into you and they've disconnected. And that's so don't see it as this dramatize everything that happens on an app, because the same thing can happen in real life, at the bar or at high school or wherever else people are. People congregate. So don't blame the app, it's a tool.
I'm glad you said that because something like ghosting has been happening since like the beginning of time. I mean, it happens whether we're on the internet, on a dating site. It happens, it's happened to me in real life just with friendships. It's happened to me
Yeah.
with jobs. Heck, it's happened to me doing this show. Sometimes people just don't show up and or they just completely like fall off the grid after you kind of like get something set up or whatever. And I'm sure that this is something that you probably experience just as a day-to-day businesswoman. Like these things happen universally, and I think sometimes that uh, the concept of ghosting just gets too like pigeonholed into dating. And yeah, it happens a lot, and it can be bad for your like self-esteem, and it can be bad, temporarily. But much like in entrepreneurship, I feel like you have to kind of like learn from the experience, dust yourself off, and just keep on going. And ghost sometimes ghosting is just something that, while I'm not here to say everybody should just freely ghost everybody, sometimes you gotta listen to your gut and just say, you know what, I feel like this is going to put me in a position that I'm not comfortable with. And I know from doing this show to all of my other experiences, I've learned to show at least a little bit of grace with that kind of thing. Now, if my wife ghosted me and she didn't come
Yeah.
home tonight, that would be a little bit different. But
Yeah,
I think
exactly.
everybody's
Yeah.
got to take the concept of ghosting a little bit differently. I mean, that's just my
Yeah.
opinion.
And also, and I think you articulated that very well. The thing that comes up for me is people want reasons for everything, and sometimes there are no reasons, or they don't. We don't even understand the reasons, or we can't even articulate them to ourselves. So if someone doesn't ghost you and they say, "Look, I just don't think we're a good match," then the temptation, if you really like the person, is why is that? And then and then it gets messy, and the person's trying to pull away. I'd rather a friend, even in real life, who's decided, oh, look, Maureen's, we've moved on. We're, don't have much in common anymore. Our kids aren't little anymore. That was what, connected us. We're in a different stage of life. I don't really want to hang out with Maureen anymore. I don't want that person to tell me that. I want them to just drift off into the ether. You know what I mean? It's kinder as well. So I think sometimes people don't realize that aspect to it.
Yeah, I think about those kind of things a lot because, well, I feel like that kind of thing has happened to me quite a bit just as a person. It's just like I felt like I had like a really good friendship and then they just kind of drifted off. There's a part of me that actually kind of like really does want to know why, but I also know that to your point that, sometimes that kind of thing is kind of like the most kind thing, and you just gotta chalk it up to, you know what, that's just, everything happens for a reason, and, the relationship, whether it's, sexual relationship or just a regular friendship or, et cetera, sometimes it just comes to a natural conclusion.
Yeah, yeah. And um yeah, and that's the other point. You can only have so many people in your life, and I really like people, and I develop relationships quite easily with people, and I'd love to have more people, but there's only so much room, so you need to have some people drift off so there's room for other people, and that's just life.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. And as we get closer to the end of this episode, which I can't believe we're already get hitting our time. I feel like we just got started. Um, let me see. Boy, I'm having a hard time with my thoughts here today. Oh my goodness. How about I give you an opportunity to just tell everybody how they can find you and how they can work with you. And now that I said all that, I'll have something to follow up with you because I remember.
So here's my book, How to Get Laid on Tinder for Men. And it's just howtogetlaidontinder.com. And you can find our podcast and the book. We also do coaching, but it's not like ongoing coaching. It's more like mentoring, like helping people, with their opening lines or their picks or, getting themselves set up, getting their confidence, working out um, yeah, just supporting them in that way. Yeah, so it's just howtogetlaidontinder.com.
Awesome. So now that I have my thoughts together, I'm having a case of the Mondays here. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
So, if somebody were to pursue a project similar to this, would you have any advice to them as far as approach, any lessons learned through your time doing this?
Um, that it's around your energy. So at the start of it, you're going to be really energetic and excited, and then you get into the work, and your energy is going to wane, and it's going to feel heavy, and you're going to be like, "Why do I want to do this?" and all that sort of stuff. So just know that's going to happen because that's helpful to know. And don't be too hard on yourself. And I didn't do this very well, but the experts say, set up a bit of a schedule. So, try and do 15 minutes a day or half, and lock it in your calendar. So a lot of people find that really helpful as well. Another thing is, I think, to get someone who's your cheer squad, who believes in you and really encourages you. So when you're feeling like shit and you don't want to do it, and you can talk to that person, your cheer squad, whether it is your, your partner or your colleague or your friend, or whoever it is. I think that's really important. And also, the final thing I want to say is, how dare you not do that thing? How dare you not share your brilliance and your insights with the world and help people?
I love
Like,
it.
I just think that you're doing yourself a disservice, and you're doing the people in the world a disservice, because you just don't know who you're going to help by doing that thing. Because you're ordinary. What you can create around this is someone else's extraordinary, and you could change lives by doing it. And how fucking cool is that?
I love it. You know, I had another thought to end this episode, but that was, you're hitting it right on the head. So you know what? I think we're going to end this episode on that note. Maureen, this was really awesome. I love talking about these topics, and I think what you're doing is a great service, and I wish you continued success, not only on this project, but just everything that you're doing. You're rocking it. You've been rocking it for a long time, and I thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to talk to little old me, and I appreciate you. And yeah, I totally agree with your sentiments. You know, you have an idea. You know, I'm not gonna say it quite like you, but you have an idea, go for it, because that's how Mark My Words was created. So I'm Mark Schmidt. She is Maureen Pound. She's an entrepreneur wearing many hats, and I had the pleasure of talking to her. I will see you all soon. Have a great day, and thanks again to Maureen for being here. Thank you for taking time out of your busy day to go on a journey with me into entrepreneurship and life on Mark My Words. If you would like to learn more about me and the show, you can find me on LinkedIn at Mark Schmidt, or connect with me on Instagram at Nimrod79. Video episodes of Mark My Words, as well as other content, can also be found on the Mark My Words YouTube page. Entrepreneurship can be quite the roller coaster ride. It can be a bit isolating and intimidating, but it doesn't have to be that way. Let's meet here next time at the crossroads on another episode of Mark My Words.